Andy, I like that background. Did you get to choose that?
Yeah, it's actually a picture that I took.
Oh,
That's
good.
up on
Even,
I was Christmas tree hunting a couple years ago up off the 77 road, looking to the south, I guess, down towards Medical Springs.
even better.
Yeah.
Nice. I can't figure out how to do that.
Um,
I need Patty.
Patty showed me how to do it.
Yeah,
It's under settings somewhere.
somewhere in there.
Okay, you're all live on YouTube. So we're ready anytime.
All right, we'll call our regular board meeting of the Cove School District, meeting of April 21st to order. And if you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. I had to pull out my, I've got my dartboard out and it's got little American flag darts on it, Steve. So that's what I was looking at. First order of business, celebrations and recognitions. Have anything to celebrate or recognize this month?
Well, since last month, there's two major groups of people to recognize. First is our students. When we started this, we didn't know how well it was going to work, and it's working. The bottom line is, no matter where you go, it's working. In that, we're maintaining a connection. We're getting some work done for kids. There's learning going on. And that's especially also due to some of our staff. The entire system is working pretty well, especially our teachers, but all employees, food service, facilities maintenance going on right now, deliveries, all of those kind of things. It's a trying time for our employees as well as our students. They're discovering that working in this setting and teaching in this manner is hard. People are putting in long hours and trying to do the best they can with instruction. And overall, the feedback has been pretty good from the community. Sometimes you get the word that you're pushing too much and you try to back off. And I think people have generally found that happy medium right now about what level or what they should be doing. So I just want to recognize the work that staff is doing and recognize the commitment that our students and their parents have as well.
Yeah, I'd echo that. This is hard on everyone. So it's glad students are at least getting the opportunity and taking advantage of what they can. And again, we've said this a couple of times, but yeah, thanks to all the staff for putting in the hard work and the extra effort.
And I don't imagine the administration is going to toot their own horn, but they deserve to be recognized. You guys have done an outstanding job leading the community and the staff to be able to have outcomes like this and give direction, despite getting crazy direction from the state, especially there in the beginning. So thank you for all your hard work as well.
Definitely. All right. Anybody else? We'll move on to the agenda. Any adjustments, additions, or deletions?
Move to adopt as presented.
I'll second that.
I heard a motion by Steve and a second from Hannah. All in favor, say aye or raise your hands or something.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion passes. The agenda is adopted. All right. Moving on. First item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Any questions on anything in there?
Point of order, Mr. Lindsay, I just point out, we have posted for public comment if anybody had submitted any, but we didn't receive any. I didn't receive any requests for comment, so.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was my next question was on that, so.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Heard a motion by Steve, and a second from Hannah. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Thank you.
Can
Next
you hear
up
me,
is the-
Andy?
Yes, can now.
I don't know what happened. But I had one comment on the consent agenda. It won't affect it passing. I couldn't, for some reason, get anybody to hear me. But on the superintendent's expense and leave report, and I think this would apply as well to Matt, do we need to do a little something extra on your guys' cell phone bills? I know they're probably ringing. I mean, I know for you, Earl, there were several weeks when that was your primary source of communication. Is your plan such that we need to do something to compensate for that?
That's not necessary in our contracts, both Mr. Miles and my own. We're compensated in our base contract for the use of our cell phones to the point that it pays for the business use part of it.
Okay.
That's not necessary, but thanks for thinking of it.
Yeah, good point, John. So next up is the second reading of policy IKFAR, graduation requirements.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this was the policy that we got together for a special meeting so that we could expedite and have some finality on our moving forward, especially for our seniors, but also for all of the high school students. The bottom line is it drops our graduation requirements to meet what the state requires. COE has traditionally had a higher graduation requirement than the state. This drops it down to the 24 credits that the state requires, and it will automatically, by the way it's written, revert back to the 26 credits for the class of 24. So this is purely being done in an effort to hold harmless any students who don't earn the credits that they should have during this closure.
This is just the policy. This isn't an AR, is it?
Well, it is actually the AR, but in this case, because the way the policy and the AR are written, this is one of the ARs that has to have board approval.
Oh. Okay. Because I looked up in the policies, there's IKF and then IKF AR. I wasn't sure what IKFR was.
This
Just
is AKF AR. Yes.
AR.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's how it's written. That's how it looked. It's the nuts and bolts of how things get administered. Well, I have no proposed changes.
And Earl, this is, I'm assuming your reference earlier was that you had no public comments on this.
I did not. I had a couple of people give me some feedback saying that they liked what we were doing, but no specific comments with anything to do with this policy change.
Okay, good. I think I heard a motion from Steve.
Yeah, I'll make it one. I was just making sure that discussion wise, you can move on past me. I have nothing to discuss.
Okay, sorry. I'm jumping ahead. I thought it was a motion, but you were.
No, there is nobody else with any discussion. I'm happy to make a motion to adopt policy IKF AR as presented.
I will second that.
All right, I heard a motion from Steve and a second from John. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved. And policy is adopted. Thanks. Sorry for jumping the gun there, Steve.
Hey, Andy, you're doing great. Keep up the good work.
Next up, first reading of policy IKAA-AR, credit for athletic participation. Turn this one over to Earl.
This is something that the school, the high school, and Mr. Miles and I have been discussing for a couple of years, the general idea. It is actually a trend that's going across the country, and there's 4 states that have now, in the last year or so, taken action at the state level saying, yeah, if you're in athletics, we count that towards your PE requirements. Idaho, Arizona, Texas, and Indiana have all done that statewide. Several districts across the state that allow credit to be awarded for PE by participation in high school athletics. And when we were putting the schedule together and I'm working on the budget is when it all came saying, oh, this is the time. Because I'm trying to set up a budget and a schedule next year with the general idea of not having loss of program. Because we can see what's coming. We know that we're going to be in a budget crunch for the next 3 years. And so the timing fit very well because we're going to be able to reduce the resources necessary to earn the minimum PE credits. This allows a student to earn half of their required credit through participation in 2 sports. If you look through the policy, it's pretty specific. You got to do the whole season. You can't get in trouble. You know, all those kinds of things are in there. And you've got to do two sports, and you can apply for the credit starting on your sophomore year. Again, this is something that we have discussed whether we should do for other reasons, and now it just kind of came back together when we're looking at how we can best manage our resources. And in the end, you know, I'm going to be proposing a budget here in a couple of weeks, and one of the things I can reveal now is it'll have 1 less teacher on it. So I'm trying to figure out how to make that happen. So a kid that doesn't ever do sports would just have to take 2 semesters of PE. PE will be offered as a semester course with, you know, they would continue. It will, when I'm looking at the schedule right now and building the budget, it will have an impact. It will reduce our needs just because of numbers of students that will participate in it. Students have indicated that, at least a few that I've talked with, have indicated that if given the option, yeah, they wouldn't take PE, they'd take something else. Those that are in sports. So I believe that it will actually reduce our you know, the cost of PE as a class. Along the same lines, you know, we're addressing the junior high. Well, not included in this policy because the junior high isn't about credits. The junior high practices times will move to PE time. And what I'm looking at doing is I'm adopting the North Powder model. So you know, sometimes Lance has good ideas, and this is the way they've been doing it for the last few years. So they run PE and sports during 7th period, and the coaches coach during 7th period, and the kids that aren't doing sports. So you're getting the effect of the activity, which is what the health people tell us is important, and finding a way to better manage it so that resources work better. And treating it as a class when they're in sports. And but the class is going on right next door. So if they're not on the team, they're over with the teacher doing the other teacher. So I hate to say that, or there to be a perception that PE is not important. It is. But when we look at what the outcomes and the desired effects of PE are, they're about more than half of it is physical activity. And that's why we stopped at half to allow for everybody to be in PE for a semester and structure the class that way so that the required elements that you're not going to get from sports in the state, the guidelines, the curriculum, the state adopted curriculum will still be able to be taught. That's the whole idea. What questions do you have?
Question. Is health class something separate than PE?
It is completely separate.
Any curriculum that's being lost, or is it just being physically active is the point of PE? Well, I see there's other standards, but.
Right. There's the PE standards, and if you go through them, Steve, and I take it you're looking at them right now, you'll probably see the same thing I am, that the majority of the standards have to do with physical activity.
Right.
And can we replace PE with sports? No, because there are standards that are in the PE curriculum that can't be necessarily integrated into any sport. And that's that general idea. As far as the junior high goes, you're going to need to go down a little bit further to look at the standards for junior high. But again, that isn't in this policy. This policy is purely about high school and credits.
Okay.
So I have a quick question. It addresses that you can't get credit for being a trainer, statistician, or manager. But correct me if I'm wrong, speech and debate is an OSAA sport.
It's not a sport, it's an activity. It's like music is also an OSAA activity.
It's an activity. So we don't need to specifically exclude.
No, it's not.
Because it's not a sport, it's an activity.
Correct.
Okay.
The sports that we plan for next year that would get credit for this would be football, volleyball, basketball, swimming, track, golf. Those are
okay.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I do like that we have in there that you still have to, you don't just get to take a class off, you still have to be enrolled in another class. That time. So this will go, so your plan then, I mean, it's not, this policy is primarily based on high school credit, but your plan generally is to revamp the middle school PE as well. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, so it's a parallel, it's the same idea. It's parallel. This policy is about the high school. As far as the instruction and how that's structured with the junior high, I didn't feel that was the delivery and the way that was managed. If the board would like to have a discussion about it, simply let me know. I saw that as an administrative and how we were going about business. And if you have any questions or discussion about it, let me know. I was not planning on bringing that to the board for discussion or approval. But the high school.
And I guess my only comment, and I'm trying to think of middle school coaches that we have. I know at least some of the high school coaches are, outside the school system, have other jobs, and aren't necessarily available to coach a team at 2:30 in the afternoon. So
yes,
that'd be my only question, how we handle that. And
this idea originated with the athletic director. And she's already been talking with coaches about it before she brought it to me. And while we may have an individual problem from here and there, just like any obstacle, there isn't anything we're not going to be able to overcome. And some sport very well may end up being not during seventh period. I can't.
Right.
That's the model we're trying to do.
Okay.
Another just a technical question. Can policies and ARs be the same thing?
This is This is an odd policy, AR, because there is no policy.
Exactly.
IKAA doesn't exist, but the coding system came from OSBA. And what I started discovering is this particular one is, I don't understand it fully either, Steve. What makes it a policy and what makes it a regulation? I ask OSAA policy people, they tell me that when you're talking about the hows and this stuff, it's a regulation.
All right.
You also have to have board approval if you're going to implement a program that awards credit. I said, okay. As I said in the memo, this is really the main model for this is Bend Lapine School District. And I discovered they have the exact same thing. In other words, they have no policy IKAA. They have an IKAAR. IKAA is graduation. IKAA has to do with a specific class. And that, anyway, I know the coding system seems kind of weird, but it'll be easy to find.
Do we just label it as both? As a policy and an AR? Like there's just a slash?
That's not what I was advised, but I can find out.
It doesn't, I'm splitting hairs. It's just, you know how those things work. You got policies and ARs.
Yes,
Policies. So
right,
where's your policy would be my first question.
right. But every AR that you find that doesn't have the policy with it, every regulation that is standalone is board approved.
Okay, so that's how it's done. Okay, that's informative. Thank you. I move to accept the first reading of policy IKAA-AR as presented and direct the superintendent to compile public or board member input concerning the revision for presentation during the May regular meeting.
I'll second.
I hear a motion from Steve and a second from Jamie. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much. Next up on our agenda, discussion and possible action to adopt the 2020-2021 academic calendar.
This is the calendar that's been kicked around, but then modified. It's the same one that you saw last month. A couple of typos have been fixed, but other than that, it's exactly the same as what was reviewed with you last month. It has 147 instructional days. Recognize that last year we had 148 at the high school and 146 at the elementary. It's putting everybody on the same schedule. And it starts school on the 24th and has the exact number of work days we currently have on our calendar.
It's good work.
Yeah.
Was there a good faith kind of agreement from concerning, you know, the inability to negotiate properly right now, but from the leaders of the negotiating teams that, I don't know, that they're on board with this and we're not going to need to change it later?
We have not, it's possible that we'll need to change it later. There has not been any kind of agreement. Will be, however, I have, the staff has been involved in the development of the calendars, so I don't anticipate anybody, you know, having a objection to it. But no, there's not been any kind of agreement. I think we're scheduled to talk about the status of negotiations at the end of this meeting in executive session.
Okay. Well, that's great that you've been able to get so much staff input. That'll go a long way. I feel like I'm hogging all the motions tonight.
You're doing great, Steve.
I move to adopt the 2020-21 academic calendar as presented.
I'll second that.
I heard a motion from Steve and a second from Hannah. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes and the calendar is adopted. Moving on, on the agenda, reports and discussion items. I guess discussion from the principals on distance education and how that's going.
Mr. Miles.
Good evening.
Secondary is up first, so that's you, Earl. Or no, that's Matt, sorry.
All right. Hey, just a quick report on how everything is going. We've been meeting, 712 has been meeting on Monday mornings via Zoom. That's gone well. Our first Monday meeting, there was a lot of questions, concerns. How are we going to do this? That sort of thing. Last week, our second meeting, less of that, a lot of sharing of what's working well and what's not. Yesterday's meeting was much briefer. And it kind of getting in the groove and moving on. Some teachers have adapted quickly to this type of teaching environment. Others, it's far more challenging. At the high school level, for some teachers, I'll use an example. Mr. Olmsted, our shop teacher, who also teaches 2 low-level math classes, this was way outside of his wheelhouse, how to make this happen. He's adapted quickly. He worked with his son-in-law, who happens to be a teacher in a neighboring district, got up to speed on how to do video lessons and so on, bought himself a new computer. He was real proud of that yesterday, showing it off. Hey, look, I'm on my new computer, so on and so forth. He's asked lots of questions. He's called me numerous times, emailed. He's checking in with other teachers. And that's the shop teacher. An example of, I'll just use him again as an example of some of the things he's doing. He has a bandsaw that needs rebuilt. So he gave the project took some video. I haven't seen what he actually came up with. He described it to me. Took some video of the saw that needs fixed, parts that need found, and so on. Had kids get on eBay, because it's an older machine, and hunt down the parts for it, get prices, where's the best deal, and what do we need to fix this machine? So that's an example of some of the work that he's doing. I could go on and on. Some lessons are a lot more innovative. Some subjects lend themselves much more to this sort of video instruction than others. Mr. Wiseman with science, he kind of naturally just, this is an easy fit for him, both with his instructional style, with his previous training, and with his subject matter. So he adapted quickly. So those sorts of things are going well. Teachers are adjusting, learning from each other, getting online, figuring out what other people are doing in other places, and so on. Here's our biggest challenge, is getting kids to log in and do it. Ongoing frustration. Different teachers have seen, one of the things that we do in our meetings is kind of compare notes as to which kids are not logging in or are logging in. So there's always a few. Hey, has so-and-so checked in with you? Yeah, he's done 3 lessons in the last 2 days or something. You're kidding. Well, he hasn't logged in with me. So now we've got a kid who's working for one teacher, but not for another. So that's relatively good news, in that we know the kid is doing something. He's connected with at least one teacher and something's happening. The ones we worry about is, have you heard from so-and-so? And there's a resounding no. In those cases, we just ratchet up the intel on where are they, Does anyone know where they're at? So on. Here's an example of what happened this afternoon. 3 seniors who were kind of missing in action. I'm hearing from a couple of teachers, they got the word, check in, do something. And so that happened this afternoon. So it's kind of an ongoing challenge. One of the resources that we've had that's been really good is our school resource officer, Tony Humphreys. I used him yesterday and today to check on a family that we hadn't heard much from. And teachers were getting concerned. They'd talked to the parent. They were concerned that maybe the parent was having some sort of trouble. Anyway, long story short, Tony checked it out, gave me a good report, and that's what we want to hear. Can I answer any questions?
I guess just shooting from the hip, is it like 5% are struggling to participate, 50%? How big of a problem is that?
Yeah, it depends on the class level. The lower the class level, the better the participation up to a point. For example, middle school participating well, about 90%. As you move up the grade levels, it drops off. Here's what we're up against. It happens every year this time of year. If you look outside, I'm looking outside, it's nice weather. Hey, even on the best of days in the spring, in a regular classroom setting, you've got challenges of keeping kids either in the classroom, at school, or keeping their mind on the task at hand. It's no different, except the challenge is bigger in that we lose that control over them. So kids who have wheels and not a lot of supervision might be doing other stuff. We've got a number of kids who are working. Some cases, kids who are sophomores and above who are working full-time jobs, 40 hours plus a week. So that's a challenge. With our seniors, depends on the class. Again, with the policy you just adopted today, by the way, thank you. That's a huge help for us in helping meet the needs of our seniors who are, some of them are in a tough spot. This helps a bunch. I appreciate it. I know they and their families do as well. With seniors, we've got the class that they've got to have for most of them, not all of them. Some of them already have their English credit, have 4 credits or more of English, but most of them need to finish English. A number of them have chosen to take the tougher route, do more work, go for a letter grade, as opposed to just doing the bare minimum and trying to get a pass and graduate. So again, it depends on the kid, on the family. There's a lot of variables, but generally speaking, we fairly good participation at the middle school level, and I'd say about 75% at the high school. It goes down as you move up.
I have 2 questions. I guess one, I mean, do you feel like for the most part, parents are stepping up when they need to? And the second question, which is unrelated, but are you guys working on any ideas to do something for the seniors in the form of some sort of recognition ceremony? I know obviously a traditional graduation is not even possible, but.
Good questions, John. So question 1 was parents. Generally speaking, we've got good parent support. In many cases, again, the older you get, in many cases, the less involved parents are. I'll just leave it at that. I've talked to some parents and grandparents who are in the same house as a kid. Kid says he's doing work. I'm telling them otherwise, or teachers are, and parents are really, well, they told me they were working. So it's there's some frustration that teachers are feeling with some of that as to how to kind of encourage parents to verify that the student is doing work as opposed to whatever else it is that they might be doing, watching a movie or playing a game or who knows what. Ongoing challenge. Seniors, two things. Mr. Pettit has got some great ideas on graduation ideas. We've shared those with our class advisors, Lisa Murchison and Ted McBride. So we've got some ideas in place. Mr. Pettit's ordered some equipment to assist with that. We intend to have graduation on graduation day. It might look a lot different than it normally does, but that's our intention. That's the plan. It's still on the calendar. Nothing has changed that way. In addition, I'm working with the Observer, who kind of reached out to us this weekend with some ideas about student recognition. So I'm working with our class advisors and the folks at the Observer for yard signs that recognize students, and as well as the Observer's doing a senior recognition page. They haven't done one of those in a number of years. They're going back to that, and we'll be assisting with that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions that I can answer? Well, thank you. Appreciate your help with the policy today. That was very helpful. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Mr. Miles.
Just to, in case you were wondering from what Mr. Miles had to say, ordering equipment, I ordered, it was like, what was it, $130, I think. I ordered a low wattage legal FM transmitter so that we can transmit to cars if things like that. So we're preparing for different options, but honestly, we're getting feedback from the kids through the advisors and discussing ideas. The only thing that has been said is we're going to run graduation on the 30th as scheduled. Now, what it's going to look like and where it is, we're going to have to delay that until we get a little bit closer to get some visibility on where that date is and what kind of restrictions. You know, I liken it to the idea of we're going to run it in the least restrictive environment. So whatever that means at that time, that's what we're going to be shooting for. As far as the elementary goes, we had similar staff meetings that started out about 1 hour and 15 minutes. And this morning in our weekly staff meeting was 37 minutes. I commented to him about it because it was kind of surprising that you could get through what normally takes at the school. We spent 1.5 hours. This morning's meeting is 37 minutes because when you do the go around and you talk, you get the updates from the teachers, how things are going. They don't have a lot of critical issues. We have a handful of students that are not participating well, that we continue to maintain contact with. Andy, I think Steve is looking for a number. I'm going to put that at we're always above 90%, which means when you put it in actual numbers, it means we have somewhere between 10 and 15 total students, K6, that we're having to communicate in other ways and make sure we maintain contact. But we are at 100% contact. Everyone that drops off the radar within a few days, we're finding and just to check up on. It's not like we're finding them and saying, "Oh, thou shalt do your work." No, we're finding and saying, "Hey, haven't heard from you. You okay?" Okay, that kind of thing. This morning, I received, had been working with another school district. I hate to say it. Okay, I'll say it, Beaverton. Us and a few others. I received a non-disclosure privacy agreement from Zoom So it makes it better, safer for our teachers to communicate with students, and Zoom won't, there's none of the information can be shared. It's a long piece of paper about the rules. And if you'll notice, when you're even logging into these meetings, the first meeting, there wasn't a waiting room, for example. Now there must be for the school. I have to admit you into this meeting. The different security measures coming in, things like that. So as far as the learning goes, yeah, we have that handful of, well, I don't really want to play. But even with those, with the students that don't want to participate, or the parents or families that don't want to participate, we are maintaining contact. And Tony has been great. I sent him on a couple of visits. They should feel like, and what I'm reported back, they should feel more like a welfare check, because that's what it's intended to be. It's not intended to be, hi there, make your kid go to school. It's intended to be, hi there, are you okay? How you doing? We haven't heard from you. Okay, glad to hear it, and leave. So that's been our approach. I feel like overall we're doing about as well as we could be. The teachers have been, I've got some resources for them, different places where they can choose online activities or resources, and seems to be going pretty well. The other thing that I should mention is the tech support. Matt, Mr. Miles had coordinated that effort. I am informed, and I'm sure somebody will tell me at some point that, wait, something happened, but we're at 100%. I have no needs right now for internet for any kids or staff. We've been that way now for more than a week. And the tech support that the ESD implemented, and that Eric Dressen and a couple other teachers are doing, has been instrumental. People staff or kids are able to call a tech line that we run as either the ESD or ourselves, saying, I can't figure out how to do something, and they walk them through it. So it's been really, really useful. That's about all for that.
Good. So I mean, sounds like really everything's going as well as could be expected.
It's going as well as it can be for the circumstances. I laid out for our staff what the true mission is, and the learning objectives. Of course, it'll be wonderful if our students gain in learning during this time. The true objective is if we can maintain and pick up when we come back, that idea, and making sure you keep kids in practice. Are they going to lose progress and gains under this format? Well, I believe so, but then I'm one that would say that that's the nature of online learning. It's hard to keep a fast pace, and especially when it's students who are not opting for online learning. This is forced upon them. And then what we're trying to avoid is regression, and that is kids going backwards. That's the number one thing we're trying to avoid. That we have to go back to where we were a few months ago when we come back in the fall. And things are looking pretty good that we won't be going there.
Good. Good, thanks for the update. Anybody else have any questions on distance learning? We'll move on. Earl, you're still up. Food service program.
I wanted to discuss with you our, I don't know, call it an exit strategy, or how do you end this program, or what's the triggers to end, those kind of things. For the students, it's pretty clear. Once the school went to, we're home base for the rest of the year, yet you're mandated under our current USDA that you're going to provide options for meals for kids, things like that. The kids' meals in the program, as we're running it, in the same method, will continue through the school year. So the last day of service will be the 29th of May. It is a Friday. It is a scheduled school day. For the seniors and adults, whichever comes first. At the end of the school year, or the end of the restrictions that put them at home, whichever comes first. So likely it'll be the end of the school year. Now, the exception to both of these are if we are directed by the governor otherwise to go longer. If I receive direction to go longer in order to maintain our state funding, then I will do that. Other than that, that's when it ends. I had a conversation with the care coordinator last week, found real helpful. She is putting together a brochure for us to deliver in mid-May to everybody, or late May, saying here's all the other resources if you need continued help as we try to as we will be transitioning out of it. But that's the plan right now. So we're going for just over another month with our food service operation the way it is.
I have no idea the possibility of that happening if, if we're directed to keep doing it longer. Do we anticipate any issues staffing that if we do have to go into the summer? That's a big if, and I mean, who knows?
Well, that's okay. There's two completely almost opposite answers to that.
Yeah.
I'll have no problem staffing something in June. I have a whole bunch of teachers that I could, get to come in and help out. Right now, we have a staffing shortage in that I don't have enough people. We barely keep all the operations going, where I'm having to keep some substitutes on a list or volunteers in my pocket to call on if we need them. As far as the finance goes, that would be the big change. If we continued into the summer, that's not program spending in any way. And yeah, so that's why I said it's kind of, yeah, I got people, but I got no money to pay them.
Right. Yeah, and assuming if we're directed to do that, there would have to be some sort of funding attached to it, I would assume.
Yes, and there would be, for the students funding, you can run the summer feeding, the summer food service program. And the problem with that in communities like Cove or Union or Imler or in this neighborhood, they're so small that nobody runs them because they're huge money pits for school districts. Yeah. You end up with, in a normal summer, you'd end up with 10 or 15 kids and a staff running a food service program for 10 kids to eat. And there's more efficient ways to go about it, and there's other places that we can refer them to. But as far as the seniors and adults, again, I'm still in the position right now where I read it. I believe we're going to get reimbursed at some point, but I still can't even guarantee that. I don't, we deal an awful lot lately with maybe money, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But right now, my best estimate right now is feeding the adults. If we don't get reimbursed, the seniors will end up costing the district somewhere around $15,000.
Okay. Any other questions on food service? No, thanks for that update, Earl. Up next, Ms. Brashears, we'll turn it over to you for various financial reports.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, there you are.
Okay, we have, because it's the end of the quarter, I supplied the monthly board report for last year's, third quarter of the fiscal year, but first quarter of the calendar year, and this year's for comparative purposes. Really, all of the expenses are aligning between the 2 years and make sense for the current year. The only difference in the overall report would be the federal funding, and that's because just today I was working on requesting those grant monies, and so that's going to be the reason those aren't aligning as close as the rest of the report is. I also presented the lunch reports for last year and this year. Up to this point, there's not a whole lot of differences in there other than, of course, the expenses are going to be up a little bit just for the mere fact that all expenses are up. But other than that, it pretty much aligns. Nothing jumped out at me.
I had one question, Amy, on the lunch
Okay.
report.
Okay.
Is that a typo that we have not yet received the state check for August and September? Page 2 at the very top, it says state check received, no, and all the rest of them are yes.
No, because we wouldn't have, we normally don't receive that until October. We request it and then we don't get paid for it until October, both October, or excuse me, August and September together. So that would be the reason why it doesn't say, yes, we didn't receive that money in that month, because we would have received it the next month afterwards.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Does that
I
make
was
sense?
under the, yeah, I was actually under the impression you were, regardless of when it came, you were saying, yes, I'd got that, or no, I hadn't, but I got you.
No,
Okay.
I don't say we received it until we actually got the check. So,
Okay.
and then there's the comparison profit and loss for the student body as well. Not a whole lot to say in there. There hasn't been much going on. So, I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, I also included the Fund 180 for the capital expenditures. I have a check gonna probably go out the beginning of next week. I believe it was about 223,000, I believe it was, for Becker's. So that is not included in that amount on those reports.
And would that be the final check on the building? Would that?
Earl, you want to assist me with that? I don't know that
No.
for sure.
No, it is not. There's a small amount left. I don't remember. It's 40 or 50,000 or something. If you pay attention to the encumbrance line,
Yeah.
we're going to end up right at, like, with all capital, somewhere around 1.8 million for the year. But that's also, remember, like the heaters and different things too. No, they don't get the final change, the final payment, until the punch list is completed. And that's proving quite challenging for Jared under the circumstances right now, because getting certain materials, you can't. So that could drag on a little bit.
So the 230 that shows as encumbered, that is what you expect to be the final.
That is the final, yes.
So when that encumbered amount of money is paid out, that's it.
That's what I anticipate, yes.
Okay.
I'm looking at remaining budget balance just under 100,000, and I don't know of anything left to pay out of that 100,000.
Okay.
That's what I understand as well.
Any other questions for Amy? Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Now back to Mr. Pettit for seismic report.
All right. Let me get this guy going. Ooh, there we go. Okay. If I can figure out how to run this thing, that'll be great. I gave you all a summary report that I had requested from Holmes Structures, that because the full reports are available right now on our website. But if you go and look at them, they're kind of confusing. So I said, great. So give me a report that anybody in the public and for me, that spells it out. So when Holmes did their work, knowing that there's a possibility of taking this work and using it towards a seismic rehabilitation grant, they split out the high school at my direction for the grant, because we can do a building up to $2.5 million can be in the application. And so when I'm looking at the different buildings and the different, I'm saying, okay, well, the high school's probably got the longest longevity. Let's go there. Great. So when you see all the reports, you'll see the report split between the high school and then everything else. The reason for that is the high school is where we anticipate in the fall, we would be applying for the state seismic rehabilitation grant. And that's why it was done in the format necessary for that grant application right from the start. So some of the deficiencies of the high school, they were highlighting some of these. And so when you see the list, you'll be able to make sense of it. The picture on the left is something that's already remedied because the bookshelves are being removed and the room is being repurposed and the books being moved to another location. These are some of the lightweight things. The total cost of the high school, the hard costs by their estimate are $728,000. And when you put in all the planning and all the rest of the costs with it, it's just over $1 million. Now, I'm having some discussions with them about their cost estimates, because there was a big red flag for me when I saw a cost estimate in another report that I just got today that said, oh, well, we did the work on your new cafeteria, which, remember, we just spent $1.8 million, 1.85 total with all the furniture and everything. And I'm getting paper back today saying the value of replacement is 3.8. I'm saying that this is not realistic. I mean, we just built it and this is what it costs. So I'm going to be discussing the costs with them and the assessment of costs a little bit further. But I wanted to keep you in the loop that if we decide to go after any additional funding, if it is available this year, it's based on the idea that the funding as approved is going to exist. Then we can put in an application in the fall and next winter. Either way, it would not be impacting our budget for the upcoming year. It would be this is a grant funding the seismic rehabilitation where it is not match funding. In other words, if you get funding for your project, the entire project is fully funded by the state. In the elementary, here's some priorities that I will be trying to mix into our maintenance plan first, because some of these things, when you look at the actual costs, they're in the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 range. Well, that's something that we can do ourselves to address some of these deficiencies. So you can see some of the stuff. If you've been around construction, you're kind of noticing, oh yeah, the floor joists aren't connected. Well, that's probably not a good idea. So that's the kind of stuff that we can probably do ourselves to make some of these repairs. The old gym, so the list of the key deficiencies. And the annex is minimal deficiencies. They're really not major repairs. And the priority one is simply anchor stuff down. That's not. We have some high risk things that are not anchored. Other than that, and again, we can do those ourselves once they identify them for us. The shop building is the same thing. Not a whole lot of work there to do, and at least in a high priority. But then when you put the costs all together, of the other than the high school, if you flat went out and said, hey, contractor, fix all this stuff, do all of, the total cost with soft costs involved are estimated at $1.7 million. So we will be looking at the priority one, highest safety risk items. The priority two items, some of it is going to come together in the capital plan simply by adjusting a little bit in the capital plan. For example, when you're going to replace a roof, we're going to put plywood sheathing down on the roofing project, or things like that will naturally start taking place. But like I said, we're going to pay attention to the priority one items and try to get those into a plan, knowing that with the current situation and questions in state funding, that if we're not going to put it in our own maintenance plan for the upcoming year, we're going to have to take all of this, put it in a long-range plan that's developed over the next calendar year for implementation in FY22 at the earliest for any kind of a capital plan. And that's what I'm saying at the earliest is, well, if things turn out rosy financially. Otherwise, it's going to be a slow process to go after these things. 3 months ago, it wasn't going to be that slow a process. But again, as I'm developing the budget now, I intend right now to propose a budget with a capital planning budget of, we're not putting any money in there. That we are going to carry our 100,000 forward and do some real small projects and carry, you know what I mean? And that's where I'm looking at now, because we're in a time where, and I'm kind of transitioning into the next issue, we're in a time where there is so much uncertainty in the funding. I have been trying to find my screen here. Oh, there I am. There we go. I'll put it real bluntly. I've been a superintendent. Let's see, this is, I think, my 18th year somewhere. And I have not been nervous like I am now about the situation we're in. There's a lot of good, fortunate things that we have done. We have a healthy cash reserve, but cash reserves run out in a hurry if you start running deficit budgets, meaning when I say a deficit budget, obviously we can't spend more than we have. I'm talking about we're spending more than we're bringing in. So that's just not an option. Reserve is for the crisis and transition time, and I'm hoping that that's not this upcoming year. I'm already projecting a 6% reduction in state base funding, and I think that the worst case, which right now the case keeps getting worse every day, so what I have called for a year, the maybe money, maybe not, and that is the renovation of the cafeteria, because it's likely that the state will backfill into the base school support before you ever get any of that money in the student investment account. So I don't know where it's going to end up. I'm going to be drafting a conservative budget that the general idea is to preserve programs, is to not go after brand new initiatives that we hadn't already programmed. and see if we can stand pat until the dust clears and dust settles. Over the next year will be an awful lot of uncertainty, and then we're going to start a new biennium. We are in the right setting right now where that biennium could look like 2008 biennium. So the district's in good shape in basic operations and doing all of those things. What is going to suffer is what, we set out to make some capital improvements. We set out with the ideas of improving our facilities. Those things are going to become much taller orders. So with either the budget outlook or seismic assessment report, does anybody have any questions?
You said you anticipate funding to go down 6%. Are you getting any guidance at all? And if I understand correctly, it won't hit for another year until the next cycle. How much your expense is going to go up in the form of PERS? Are they even venturing to make a guess yet?
I haven't heard anybody even taking a stab at that right now. I'm the guy that says stay on your schedule, just like graduation. I'm the guy that's saying stay on your schedule, a budget you can delay. It's not going to do you much to do. Some places are delaying their whole budget process. I believe we can go ahead and put it together. The visibility and the focus right now, John, quite frankly, is on the upcoming year, period. I know that the biennium, well, I don't know anything anymore, but I'm confident from my experience that the biennium is going to be painful, the upcoming. So the 2 years following the upcoming year. The upcoming year amount of funding is already set, but it's happened before in Oregon, and I'm predicting, and so are many of the organizations, including OSBA, advising to build your budgets based upon their estimates, but reduce a percentage because, as they put it, every $100 million is 2%. So every reduction of 100 million that they come out of the state school funds is 2%. So there are people that are a little bit more doom and gloom than me that are going as far as trying to reduce their budgets. There's one that's 15%, but most are going 2 or 4. I'm going 6 because what that really means is 4. And let me explain what I mean by that. The biennium, this is the upcoming year, is the second year of a biennium. The state funds you at 49.51, 49%. So we're projected right now by funding to get a 2% increase if all other factors were the same. So I'm going 4%, the equivalent of, and it doesn't exactly work out that way, I know, but in broad thinking, think of it as, okay, let's, instead of saying 49.51, let's go 49.45 and put it together and see where it comes out. I don't know yet. Amy and I have been pretty busy trying to crunch numbers, and we'll have that out next week as far as the proposed budget goes. What I do know is that I can already see that our expenditure budget will be significantly lower than last year.
Since we're discussing the budget, I know that this is the platform that we are using currently, and that we're kind of painted into a little bit of a corner here. I'll be honest, it's worked better than I envisioned that it would, but I think it still leaves a lot to be desired. Is there any possibility that the budget committee meeting can be a more hands-on meeting while we may and still maintain this 6-foot distance that they're telling us? Obviously giving any member that was uncomfortable with that the option to attend via Zoom.
John, I don't think so, but I'm not certain. So I will look into that and see if there's any way that we can run it in another format. You have to remember that these meetings are also public hearings, and you have to have the ability for the public to join. I intend on this being in a webinar format, and anybody in the community can raise their hand. That's what it's called in the webinar. You get a little signal, and then you can acknowledge and allow them to speak. I don't know, John, but I will look into it. I agree with you, just like in instruction. You know, you want the best instruction where we have a quality teacher and a quality classroom with quality curriculum. We got some instruction going on. This is not the ideal. I agree with you, and I'll see what we can do.
I would appreciate it. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I mean, it's obvious that you've got, you know, the budget's going to be, from what you're saying, substantially different than it was a year ago in an effort to get ahead of the curve here. And I don't know, I'm a hands-on person, I guess. So I appreciate you looking into that.
Okay.
Oh, I'd agree with you, John. I would say I think it's better in person. But yeah, I think Earl's got a good point about the public participation piece. It's easier to control, you know, us and the budget committee in a live person setting. But yeah, we couldn't. Managing the public part would be a little trickier, I think, just because you wouldn't be able to allow, you know, unlimited number of people in a room, for example. So, but
Perhaps we could do some hybrid where the
Yeah.
public could participate remotely, or, I mean, as dumb as it sounds, we could sit there if the Wi-Fi capacity of the school's enough. I mean, we could sit there with our computers and still be kind of face to face, but you would still be able to live stream to the public, or I don't know.
I'll look into the options, John. You know, when we ran our first board meeting on Zoom, it was there were 3 of us in a room together. There's no reason that you can't do something like that and still be available to the public. But I don't know what the exact rules are, and I'll look into that and get back with you.
Okay.
Right now, the standard that everybody is doing is this, but I'm not afraid to be the one that's not doing what everybody else is.
good. Yeah, thanks for looking into that. Any other questions on budget process? When is our first meeting? First week of May?
May 5th.
May 5th.
That's like 2 weeks out, right?
Yeah.
You know, the last thing, the cafeteria, I'd mentioned already, you know, there's a few items on the punch list. The one big item on the punch list, it's kind of ironic in this time, the one item that we can't seem to get, but finally got it, it's supposed to be delivered Monday, is the sneeze guard. We have no sneeze guard on our line, and I just thought it was kind of ironic. And it's about the manufacturer being repurposed, and there you go. And so, but there's a few other small items. There is no showstopper right now other than the sneeze guard, where we'd have problems running kids through a line and meeting all the requirements. So.
And I assume we're not, I believe there was a hard date in the contract that this had to be completed by, but we're not going to hold their feet to the fire, I hope, under these circumstances.
Yeah, they met their completion. We accepted it on time. And the term is substantial completion, John. In every kind of a construction project like this, there's a handful of things that I don't know, they broke something when they were installing it and they have to get you a new one, different things that take time. And that's a typical of a punch list is done at substantial completion. We've already accepted from them substantial completion. They don't get the final pay, and we don't sign off the total project until the punch list is completed. If you're all interested, I mean, I can send you the punch list. It's really long. Seriously, it's probably 20 pages long with 80 items, but all but a few of them were taken care of the same day. And that's because, our architect did a great job representing us and put that together, doing the full inspection of the whole project, finding things that I'm looking at going, oh, you're putting on a punch list that your caulk line wasn't long enough. And once it's like, okay, that's how down to detail it is. So, and the contractor went back and made the necessary repairs, and we're just about there.
Anything else on cafeteria or anything else? Moving on to the next item is future agenda. What we have coming up next month, obviously we'll have some kind of budget update and probably another update on learning and distance learning and maybe a potential graduation plan.
Yes, we will have a graduation plan to discuss and figure out which board member or members are going to be participating in graduation, whatever plan we have.
Anybody else have any other items that we need to have on our agenda next month?
Not
Ready
Hollywood
to-
Squares, Steve.
I was going to turn off a camera here. Black him out. Okay.
I don't have my big count. Oh, I guess I do have my big calendar. Yeah, I don't see anything on that big calendar for May, other than budget committee. And teacher appreciation week.
I have communicated with the entire budget committee, and in the next couple of days, I'll have the meeting set up, and there's a function for me to do practice with the panelists. A couple of them will practice with me to make sure they're all up on that, unless I can find a better way to do it.
Great. Anybody else got anything? All right, well, upcoming events where I talked about, but first budget committee meeting on the 5th and next board meeting on the 19th. If nobody else has any other items, I think it's time to adjourn into executive session for the purpose of, in accordance with ORS 192-660, paragraph 2D, to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. So how we operate that, Mr. Pettit?
Well, I'm about to turn the public off of YouTube before we do that, and just want to make sure that everyone knows that there will be no action taken. Following the executive session, we'll be straight to adjournment, no other action taken. And with your permission, I will get us set up for executive session.
I think we're ready for that.